A political and legal storm erupted in Washington, D.C. when Judge Charles Hargrove thought a $500 fine would silence Karoline Leavitt. He was gravely mistaken. Leavitt, at just 27, not only resisted, but countered with an $800 million legal strike. As the youngest White House press secretary in history, she became the symbol of uncompromising conservatism. And this time, her target was not the liberal media or Hollywood, but a federal judge. The conflict began in a tense courtroom where Leavitt, on President Trump's orders, was overseeing a lawsuit involving Christians banned from public prayer. Instead of merely observing, Leavitt became the focal point when Judge Hargrove fined her $500 for wearing a cross in front of dozens of witnesses. The judge criticized her as a fanatic and declared, "The cross doesn't belong here." But Karoline didn't flinch. As soon as she left the courtroom, she called her lawyer and decided to sue Hargrove and the D.C. court for defamation and violation of the First Amendment. This was her counterattack, and it was worth $800 million. While the press debated the legality of the fine, Karoline unleashed a thunderbolt. The media exploded, social media erupted, and the nation was divided. One side called her a warrior for religious freedom, while the other accused her of exploiting faith for political aggression. According to insiders, Judge Hargrove was facing immense pressure, not only from the public but from within the judiciary itself. Amid growing public outcry and mounting pressure, Hargrove's position was beginning to wobble. Karoline Leavitt wasn't backing down, and the storm she created was just beginning. Back at the White House, Karoline's eyes burned with determination. The silver cross around her neck gleamed, as if reminding her of the battle she had just ignited. The insults from Hargrove echoed in her mind. She didn't just want to win, she wanted him to pay. She quickly sent an email to Rachel Harper, the notorious conservative lawyer known as the Judge Hunter. Rachel, with her blonde hair tightly bunned, stepped into the room with a voice sharp as a blade. "Hargrove isn't just targeting you, Karoline. He's a pawn of the liberal elite trying to weaken Trump through you," she explained. Rachel laid out the plan. Charge Hargrove with intentional defamation and sue the D.C. court for enabling anti-religious bias. "We'll demand the federal court expedite the proceedings," Rachel emphasized. "The damage to your reputation is urgent. They'll have to comply." Karoline nodded, her pulse racing. She was determined to make Hargrove feel the pressure she had felt in that courtroom. The next day, the federal court agreed to expedite the proceedings, ordering Hargrove to provide all related documents within 48 hours. Karoline didn't waste time. She called Jake Torres, a social media strategist from Trump's 2024 campaign. "Jake, make Kuger's judge on trial go viral," she said. Jake moved quickly, coordinating with TikTokers and YouTubers, pushing the courtroom audio onto social media. Within hours, the hashtag surged past 50,000 mentions, and a viral video of Karoline standing at the defendant's podium, her resolute voice echoing through the courtroom, captured the public's attention. Meanwhile, Hargrove sat hunched over at his desk, watching the $800 million lawsuit coverage flood TV screens. Panicked, he scrambled to respond. "This is just a young girl's stunt," he muttered, but his words lacked conviction. He called Judge Ellen Carver, a longtime ally, to discuss the situation. "Ellen, what does she have against me?" Hargrove asked, his voice faltering. Carver's response was cold. "Calm down, Charles. I'll put pressure on the witnesses. She can't win without evidence." Suddenly, an anonymous email landed in Karoline's inbox from Ethan Brooks, an IT staffer at the D.C. court. "I saw Hargrove and Carver's emails," Ethan wrote, attaching a PDF. Karoline opened it, her heart pounding. The emails revealed a plot between Hargrove and Carver to teach Karoline a lesson and send a message to Trump. One line enraged her. "Target her cross. It'll throw the conservatives into chaos." Karoline immediately forwarded the email to Rachel and Jake, ordering, "Go public now." Within hours, Fox News ran the headline, D.C. judge conspires to smear White House press secretary. And the hashtag #UJudge on trial exploded, surpassing 100,000 mentions. On social media, users commented, "Hargrove's done. Karoline's a legend." Hargrove, watching the news at home, felt the ground beneath him crumble. He tried to delete the incriminating emails from the court server, but a message popped up. "System has saved copies." Ethan Brooks from the corner of the IT office smiled discreetly, having sent a tip to Linda Martinez, an investigator with the D.C. Judicial Council. Linda, with 20 years of experience, immediately assembled her investigative team. "If Hargrove deletes evidence, he's violating federal law," she said. Meanwhile, Hargrove's colleagues began distancing themselves from him. Court clerk Miss Thompson secretly photocopied her notebook and prepared to hand it over to Karoline. "Court officer," James Wilson whispered to a colleague, "Hargrove was wrong. Leavitt's doing the right thing." Karoline knew Hargrove was terrified, but she wasn't done yet. Rachel entered the room, placing a thick stack of documents on the table. "The court just ordered a search of Hargrove's office," she announced. "We're about to get more evidence." Karoline nodded, her hand brushing against her cross. Linda Martinez stood in the D.C. District Court's archive room, her stern face illuminated by fluorescent lights. She knew the emails from Ethan Brooks were just the beginning. Her hand reached for a locked iron box labeled "Internal Records" and ordered her assistant to open it. Outside, the investigative team searched Hargrove's office. The sound of footsteps and rustling papers echoed in the hallway. Karoline's $800 million lawsuit was shaking D.C., and Linda was determined to find the evidence that would crush Hargrove. Back at the White House, Karoline clicked on a new TikTok video. A young man reenacting Hargrove yelling at her in court, captioned, "Karoline's burning down the system." She smiled, but her eyes were cold. Jake Torres knocked on the door, holding a tablet. "Thompson just reached out. She has what we need," he said, his voice filled with excitement. Thompson, the court clerk, had sent a brief message. 12 years of notes. Hargrove targeted religion. Meet me tonight. At a small cafe on the outskirts of D.C., Thompson slid a leather-bound notebook across the table to Karoline. "Hargrove finds crosses. He jabs anything tied to faith," she whispered. Karoline flipped through the pages, gripping the notebook tightly. "This is gold," she said. Thompson's eyes flickered with fear. "If he finds out I did this, I'm out." "Of a job," she said. Karoline placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're doing the right thing. I'll protect you." Meanwhile, Linda opened the iron box in the archive room, uncovering Hargrove's black file, a thick dossier documenting 200 cases of fines on religious symbols over 5 years, 80% targeting Christians. A handwritten note by Hargrove read, "Keep the courtroom clean of fanaticism." Linda passed the dossier to her analysis team. James Wilson, the court officer, spoke in a low voice over the phone. "I counted 25 cases last year, crosses, pins. He fined them double compared to other violations." Linda quickly jotted down notes, sensing the web of injustice unraveling. Back at the White House, Karoline received an email from Linda with a scanned copy of the black file. She read each line, her anger flaring. She immediately called Jake. "Post all of this on social media platforms. The public needs to know who Hargrove is." Within 30 minutes, the hashtag #JudgeOnTrial had surpassed. The dossier went viral, with over 300,000 mentions and images of its pages circulating. One post read, "Hargrove finds crosses but lets vulgar shirts slide. He's got to go." Karoline appeared on Newsmax, her voice steely, declaring, "Hargrove isn't a judge. He's an oppressor of faith, and I'll expose him." Viewers applauded as the hashtag exploded globally. Hargrove, watching from his dark apartment, felt his power slipping away. His phone buzzed incessantly with an emergency meeting. Call from the Judicial Council. He opened an email from Linda demanding an explanation within 24 hours. His hands shook as he tried calling Carver, but she didn't answer. Mocking posts flooded his phone, and in frustration he slammed his hand on the table, muttering, "She's just a girl," even as he knew deep down he was losing. Desperate, he dialed a secret fixer, whispering, "I need to get out of this." Linda, at the investigation office, received an email from Ethan Brooks, revealing that Harov had been taking orders from Senator Daniel Kleen, a prominent anti-Trump liberal. Ethan attached emails showing that Kleen had written, "Target Leavitt, discredit her, and Trump will falter." Linda forwarded the email to Karoline with a note. "This is the spark you need." Karoline, reading the message, felt her lips tighten. She called Rachel Harper, saying, "We've got Harov and Kleen. Push the lawsuit harder." Rachel, cold and confident, responded, "They don't know who they're messing with." Jake, at the media headquarters, pushed the Klein email onto X, captioning it, "Hargrove is a puppet of the liberal elite." The Newsmax video went viral with comments like, "Karoline is tearing the system apart." Crowds began gathering outside the D.C. courthouse, holding signs reading, "Justice for Faith." Harov, from his apartment, heard their chants and drew the curtains, his heart pounding. A message from the fixer arrived. "Plane ready, Switzerland tomorrow." Harov nodded vacantly, knowing he wasn't just losing power. He was losing everything. Karoline stood in front of a mirror in the White House press room, adjusting her navy blazer, the silver cross gleaming. The TV behind her showed the crowds outside the D.C. courthouse holding high signs reading, "Justice for Faith." After Harov's black file and the Kleen emails went viral, Karoline prepared for the biggest press conference of her career. She didn't just want to win the $800 million lawsuit. She wanted to isolate Harov completely. Rachel Harper, Karoline's lawyer, walked in with a new stack of documents from Linda. "We have more evidence," Rachel said triumphantly. Harov had contacted Kleen through an encrypted app, but Ethan had recovered the messages. Karoline skimmed. The printout where Harov wrote, "Leavitt is a threat, we must silence her." She handed the documents to Jake Torres, the media strategist, saying, "Jake, make this a blockbuster." Jake nodded, gleaming with excitement, immediately contacting the TikTok and YouTube teams. Within hours, the encrypted messages became a viral video, flashing text asking, "Harov conspired against Karoline. Who is he?" At the press conference, Karoline stepped up to the podium. Her voice resounded, "Charles Hargrove didn't just find me for my faith. He's a puppet of the liberal elite, targeting me to hurt President Trump." She held up the Harov Kleen message printout as cameras zoomed in. "This is proof he conspired to defame me, and, through me, millions of people of faith." The press room erupted with questions, but Karoline remained calm, citing the black file and Thompson's notebook. The media exploded. One post read, "Karoline just dropped a nuclear bomb on Hargrove." The press conference video hit 1 million views in just 2 hours. Outside the D.C. courthouse, a crowd of hundreds gathered, chanting for Harov to resign. Banners depicted crosses and the words, "Justice for Karoline." A mother held up a photo of her son, once fined by Harov for a prayer pin, shouting, "Leavitt speaks for us." Fox News and Newsmax broadcast live, calling Karoline a torch of justice, but CNN and MSNBC labeled her a political agitator. Karoline fired back on Newsmax that night, her voice sharp. "They call me an agitator. I'm just demanding the justice Harov trampled." The public rallied behind Karoline, one victory for the people, one loss for the liberal media. Harov, hiding in his dark apartment, turned off the TV as Karoline's face filled the screen. His hands trembled as his phone flooded with messages from colleagues distancing themselves. He opened the door to find a letter from his wife. "Charles, I can't go on. I'm gone." His son, a young lawyer, posted on X, "I'm ashamed of my father." Harov slumped into a chair, his mind reeling. Scrolling through social media, he saw mocking memes. One of him in a clown hat, captioned, "Hargrove, the hypocrite judge." He called his fixer, his voice breaking. "Isn't the plane ready? I can't take this anymore." The fixer replied, "Tomorrow morning, Switzerland. Stay quiet." The next day, as patrol cars neared his home, Harrove's phone buzzed again. Linda's. Team had arrived with a search warrant. He drew the curtains, heart pounding, and received a final message from Carver. "Charles, they have everything. I can't help anymore." He threw his phone in frustration, screaming, "She's destroyed me." Hargrove opened a suitcase, hurriedly packing documents as his eyes darted around. The fixer called again. "Plane's ready. Don't get caught." Hargrove nodded, knowing he had no choice. He looked at his apartment one last time, the sense of power he once had evaporating. Linda's team at the courthouse reported that Hargrove had left behind a laptop with encrypted data confirming his communications. With Cleany, Linda called Karoline. "We have more messages." At the White House, Karoline stood by a window, gazing out at the twinkling D.C. skyline. "Let him run," she said coldly, her voice unwavering. "Justice will catch up." She touched her cross, feeling the strength of those standing behind her. In the federal courtroom in Washington, D.C., tension buzzed in the air. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting sharp shadows on the polished wooden floor. Karoline stood at the plaintiff's table, her navy blazer impeccable, the silver cross gleaming. The $800 million defamation lawsuit against Hargrove and the D.C. court system had reached its peak, fueled by a cascade of evidence: Hargrove's black file, Thompson's notebook, Senator Klein's emails, and the encrypted messages. Outside, the protesting crowd roared, their chants echoing through the thick walls. Karoline's image dominated screens nationwide. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was dismantling a corrupt system, with Hargrove as the target. Rachel Harper, Karoline's lawyer, adjusted her glasses with authority as she organized. The evidence: audio recordings, scanned documents, witness testimonies. Across from her, Hargrove sat hunched, his once imposing presence now diminished, eyes darting with anxiety. Ellen Carver, his ally, stood beside him, her silver hair tightly bunned, her face pale as she sensed defeat approaching. The courtroom buzzed with reporters scribbling furiously, influencers live-streaming, and citizens clutching signs that read, "Faith over fear." Judge Amelia Ruiz, known for her fairness, banged her gavel, silencing the noise. "Proceed with the plaintiff," she declared, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. Rachel opened with precision, projecting Hargrove's black file onto a large screen. 250 cases of fines for religious symbols over 6 years, 80% targeting Christians. "This wasn't a mistake," she said, pointing to Hargrove's handwritten note. "Religion is a threat." The courtroom gasped. Rachel played the audio from the district court, where Hargrove's voice snarled, calling Karoline a fanatic and dangerous lackey. She continued with Thompson's notebook, listing selective fines, then Klein's emails urging Hargrove to smear Karoline. Finally, she revealed the encrypted messages recovered by Ethan Brooks showing how Hargrove had plotted to break Karoline. The courtroom erupted in boos, and Judge Ruiz banged her gavel for order. Karoline took the witness stand, her posture solid as stone, her voice steady but fiery. "Hargrove didn't just find me for this cross," she said, her fingers touching, the silver chain around her neck. "He turned the judge's bench into a weapon to crush my faith and my role beside President Trump." She stared directly at Hargrove, who shrank under her gaze. "He thought he could defame me, but he underestimated the power of truth." Rachel presented Klein's email, and Karoline read aloud, "Leavitt is Trump's." Whispers spread through the room as a woman in the audience murmured, "She can't be stopped." Hargrove's lawyer, Victor Clean, no relation to the senator, tried to deflect, arguing that Harrow's actions were procedural. Rachel countered by calling Linda Martinez as a witness. Linda, radiating authority, testified about the black file and Harrow's attempt to delete evidence, a federal crime. James Wilson followed, recounting 30 cases of religious symbol fines in a year that Hargrove's colleagues had ignored. Thompson, trembling but resolute, described Harrow's bias. He mocked a boy's prayer ring but overlooked shirts with vulgar slogans. Ethan Brooks, the whistleblower IT staffer, detailed recovering deleted messages, earning a nod from Karoline. Each witness tightened the noose around Hargrove. Cross-examination began, and Rachel called Harrow to the stand. He stumbled forward, sweat beading on his forehead. "Did you target Miss Leavitt to undermine President Trump?" Rachel asked, her voice sharp as a sword. Harrow stammered, I was just staying neutral." Karoline, from the plaintiff's table, was permitted by Ruiz to stand. "Neutral?" she challenged, her voice booming like thunder. "You find my cross but excused vulgar slogans. You took orders from Senator Clean to take me down. Why?" The courtroom held its breath. Harrow's face crumpled, his voice breaking. "I was pressured." Cleena said it was strategy. Gasps echoed through the room, but Ruiz's gavel stayed silent. Rachel pressed on, displaying Hargrove's note. "Religion is a threat." "This is your neutrality?" she questioned. Harrow, cornered, broke into tears. "I didn't mean to. I was just following orders." The courtroom exploded in shouts of "liar." Karoline, unflinching, stepped forward. "You chose to defame me and countless others for their faith. You betrayed justice." Harrow collapsed into his chair, tears streaming as Ruiz called for order. Carver, watching, covered her face, knowing her own trial loomed. Rachel called Carver, whose testimony crumbled under pressure. "Did you conspire with Harrow to target Miss Leavitt?" Rachel asked, presenting an email where Carver wrote, "Hit her faith, it'll hurt." Carver faltered. It was just a suggestion, but Rachel countered with Ethan's recovered messages proving coordination. Carver broke, admitting, "We thought we'd succeed." Boos erupted and Ruiz warned the audience, but the damage was clear. Harrow and Carver were exposed, their plot laid bare before the public. The trial paused, but the courtroom's energy spilled onto social media. A post declared, "Karoline just buried Hargrove." A viral clip captured her confronting Hargrove, captioned, "This is justice." Reporters mobbed Karoline outside the court, but she spoke calmly. "This isn't just about me. It's about everyone." Inside, Harrow sat alone, his lawyer whispering in panic. He knew the verdict was coming, bringing his complete downfall. Karoline returned to the White House, greeted by applause from staff. Jake rushed in, tablet glowing. "You're a legend. X is calling you the legal lioness." She smiled, but her mind was on the next step. Linda called. Harrow's team was panicking. He might not show up tomorrow. Karoline nodded, touching her cross. "Let him hide. He can't escape." Trump texted, "You crushed it, Liv. Keep going." She smiled, knowing Harrow's downfall was sealed. Outside, protesters grew louder, their chants echoing through D.C. streets. A young man held a sign that read, "Karoline for Justice." A pastor live-streamed, praising her courage on X. A lawyer tweeted, "Hargrove's career is over. Leavitt rewrote the game." Karoline, scrolling through the posts, felt her mission surge. Hargrove tried to destroy her, but she turned his hammer to dust. Karoline returned to her office, opening an email from a mother. "Harrow fined my son for a cross. You're our light." She read it, heart warmed, but her resolve intensified. TJ reported protests had spread to Virginia. "You started a movement," he said. Karoline nodded, knowing this trial hadn't just taken down Hargrove. It was changing the system. Meanwhile, Harrow sat in the courtroom, staring at the empty gallery, feeling final isolation. Karoline had won, and he knew there was no way back. Under the gray sky of a private airstrip outside Washington, D.C., Charles Harrov, once a powerful judge, now a coward in a black coat and cap shielding half his face, boarded a small jet. It was ready to whisk him to Switzerland, a country with no extradition treaty with the U.S. After the brutal federal trial where Karoline Leavitt crushed him with the black file, Senator Cleaney's emails, and unrelenting testimonies, Harrov knew he had lost. Karoline's $800 million lawsuit didn't just destroy his reputation. It forced him to flee, turning him into an international laughingstock. Harrov boarded the plane, clutching a suitcase stuffed with documents and cash. The fixer, a gaunt man named Marco, closed the cabin door. "No one knows you're here. Stay quiet." Harrov nodded, but his eyes were hollow. His mind reeled with Karoline's image on the witness stand, her voice thundering, "You betrayed justice." He opened his phone, scrolling through X one last time. A post hit him hard, his image mocked as a clown, captioned, "Harrov flees. Karoline wins." He shut off the device, chest heavy. The power he once held was now mere ashes. Meanwhile, at the White House, Karoline sat in her office, soft light illuminating her face as she watched a trial clip, her confrontation with Harrov, viewed millions of times. Jake Torres, the media strategist, knocked and entered, his voice, excited. "Hargrove's gone. Sources say he boarded a plane this morning." Karoline gave a cold smile. Running won't escape justice. She touched the silver cross on her blazer, feeling strength from her supporters, Thompson, Wilson, Ethan, and the public. Linda Martinez called. "Voice firm, we have a federal warrant, Harrov deleted evidence, obstruction of justice." Karoline nodded. "Good, bring him back to D.C." Linda's investigative team searched Harrov's apartment, finding a laptop with undeleted data confirming his encrypted app communications with Clean. A handwritten note hastily stuffed under a desk made. Linda paused. "Leavitt's too strong. Must leave." She snapped a photo and sent it to Karoline with the message. He knew he lost. The public erupted as news of Harrov's flight spread. A TikToker posted a video. A private jet taking off, intercut with Karoline at trial. Caption: "Hargrove runs, but Karoline's the storm." The video hit 3 million views, with comments like, "Cowardly judge," "Leavitt's a legend." International media joined the manhunt. A Swiss reporter spotted Harrov at a luxury villa in Geneva, hiding under an alias. Images of him sneaking into the house spread on CNN International with the headline, "U.S. Judge Flees After Bombshell Lawsuit." Harrov became the fugitive judge, mocked with memes of him on a yacht, captioned, "Hargrove thinks Switzerland will save him." He turned on the TV in the villa, seeing his face on the news. The anchor's voice dripped with sarcasm. "From judge's bench to fugitive, Harrov's a global joke." He slammed his hand on the table, but no one heard. In D.C., Ellen Carver faced consequences. The Judicial Council suspended her, launching an investigation based on her emails and messages to Harrov. A young lawyer at the D.C. court resigned, tweeting, "I won't work under Harrov and Carver's shadow." The D.C. court, once a symbol of power, now reeled in crisis, with other judges scrutinized for ties to the black file. Linda held a press conference, voice steely. "Harrov violated federal law. We'll bring him back." The crowd outside the courthouse cheered, holding signs. "Karoline leads. Harrov fails." Karoline held a press conference at the White House, standing before the American flag. Her voice was calm but powerful. "Harrov fled, but justice knows no borders. He thinks Switzerland is a haven. We'll find him." She held up the $500 fine receipt from the initial trial, now framed. This was the start. Now it's victory. Cameras flashed and social media erupted. One post read, "Harrov runs, but Leavitt's his nightmare." She ended the conference calling out, "Stand up for faith and justice as we did today." Harrove. In his Geneva villa, opened his laptop and saw the federal warrant. He tried transferring money to an offshore account, but the Justice Department blocked all transactions. A message from the U.S. government flashed on his screen. Fugitive. His fixer arrived, and they knew he was there. "Leave now," he said, as Harrove panicked, glancing out the window and spotting reporters gathering. He drew the curtains, heart pounding, realizing he had nowhere left to hide. A Swiss news report called him a despicable fugitive, and for the first time, Harrove felt absolute loneliness. Karoline, watching the news about Harrove at the White House, smiled subtly. Jake walked in. "You did it. Harrove's a global laughingstock." She nodded, touching her cross. "This isn't the end. Justice continues." Outside, protests spread from D.C. to major cities with signs reading, "Karoline for Justice." A pastor on X wrote, "Leavitt didn't just beat Harrove, she won for all of us." Karoline, gazing at D.C.'s twinkling lights, knew she had turned the trial into a movement. Harrove, though far away, couldn't escape her shadow. In the city, chants from protesting crowds echoed, carrying signs reading, "Karoline for Justice." After Charles Harrove, once a powerful judge, became a fugitive in Switzerland, the $800 million defamation lawsuit not only crushed him, but sparked a judicial reform movement with Karoline as its figurehead. Posts about her blazed across social media, spreading from D.C. to distant states, turning her into a symbol of justice and faith. Rachel Harper walked in with a rare smile on her face. "The federal court just issued its ruling," she announced, handing over a document. "You won. Major damages, and the D.C. court must reform." The amount wasn't disclosed, but the ruling mandated the D.C. District Court to issue new regulations banning fines on religious symbols unless they caused disruption, and requiring First Amendment training for all judges. Karoline read the document, her voice low but strong. "This is the start." Rachel nodded. "You changed the game." The news spread quickly. Fox News ran the headline, "Leavitt wins big, Harrove flees." A pastor posted, "Karoline protected our faith." Jake Torres, the media strategist, sent Karoline a globally viral video of the trial, showing crowds gathered in a D.C. park where Christians once sued for being banned from public prayer. Now, they were celebrating, holding signs that read, "Freedom Park," and thanking Karoline. She stood on a wooden podium before hundreds, her voice resounding, "Harrove wanted to crush faith, but we turned this park into a symbol of freedom." The crowd cheered, raising crosses and signs. Other states took action. Texas passed a law protecting religious symbols in courtrooms, citing Karoline's lawsuit. Florida and Ohio followed, mandating First Amendment training. Texas's governor tweeted, "Thank you, Leavitt, for the fire of justice." The Justice Department, impressed by Karoline's victory, invited her to serve as a special advisor on religious freedom. She accepted, feeling a greater responsibility than ever. A young Ohio lawyer wrote, "You inspired me to open a free clinic for victims of religious discrimination." Karoline read the email, her eyes shining, knowing her movement was growing. Linda Martinez at the Judicial Council released a final report. Harrove violated federal law, and Ellen Carver was permanently removed. The D.C. court pledged transparent oversight, appointing a committee led by Linda. A young judge tweeted, "Leavitt forced us to look at ourselves. The judiciary will be better." Support continued with posts saying, "Karoline didn't just win a lawsuit, she's reshaping justice." A TikToker created a video of D.C. Pulse Park glowing, intercut with Karoline speaking, captioned, "From Cross to Freedom." Karoline received an email from a young girl. "Harrove, find my prayer bracelet. You're my hero." Karoline replied, "You're the hero for holding your faith." Jake walked in with a glowing tablet. "You started a revolution." Karoline, Protests reached California. She nodded, looking at DC's twinkling lights. Harrove might have fled, but his legacy, of a biased system, was crumbling under her strength. She opened X and saw a post from a law student. "I'm studying law because of Leavitt. She proved justice is real." Karoline stood at a podium in Congress, stage lights illuminating her face and the silver cross on her navy blazer, a steadfast flame before lawmakers. She presented a plan for national judicial reform, her voice echoing, "We must protect faith from unjust hammers." The $800 million lawsuit against Charles Harrove didn't just defeat him, it ignited a wave of change. From DC's park to distant states, social media erupted, calling her the unquenchable torch. Karoline, once a press secretary, was now a symbol leading the future of justice. In the auditorium, Elise Stefanik stood clapping, eyes shining with pride. A congressman tweeted, "Leavitt didn't just defeat Harrove, she's shaping a new judiciary." Karoline concluded her speech emphasizing, "Justice doesn't stop when the guilty flee." Millions watched the live stream commenting, "Karoline is the future." A law student emailed, "You inspired me to study law to protect faith." Karoline read it, heart warmed knowing her legacy was taking root. In Switzerland, Harrove, hiding in his Geneva villa, sent an apology email through a secret channel. "I was wrong," he wrote, offering to assist with remote judicial training. Karoline replied curtly, "Justice accepts reform, but doesn't forget." She forwarded the email to Linda Martinez, who was overseeing the D.C. court reforms. Linda, her voice firm, confirmed, "Harrove will face the warrant wherever he is." A viral post spread. "Harrove apologizes too late. Leavitt won." "Under a twinkling sky," Karoline whispered, "justice doesn't come on its own. We must fight for it." A pastor wrote, "Leavitt taught us faith and truth always prevail." She looked over the city, heart brimming with resolve. Harrove could run, but her legacy, a fairer judicial system, would endure. "Thank you for standing with me," she messaged, the post going viral. This closed one chapter, but opened a future where Karoline led, unyielding. The story of Karoline Leavitt in Judge Fall's country, after her $800 million lawsuit, mirrors real tensions in American society. Today, especially around religious freedom, judicial bias, and the power of social media. Karoline's journey, from being fined $500 by Judge Harrove for wearing a cross to launching an $800 million lawsuit and sparking judicial reform, shows that individuals can confront unjust systems with persistence and strategy. Harrove's Black File, revealing 250 cases of fines on religious symbols, mirrors real-world disputes over religious discrimination in public spaces, like lawsuits over Christian symbols banned in schools or courthouses. Karoline's use of X and the hashtag #JudgeOnTrial to amplify her case and reach millions reflects social media's role in shaping U.S. public opinion, akin to movements like Not Me Too or Black Lives Matter. Harrove's flight and reforms in Texas, Florida, and Ohio suggest that public and legal pressure can force systemic change, similar to reforms following recent judicial scandals. The lesson is clear. In American society, where individual freedoms are championed, anyone can drive change by leveraging the law, media, and community. Learn from Karoline, document evidence, find allies, and relentlessly expose the truth through X and press conferences. Whether facing small injustices, like a fine, or large ones, like systemic bias, fight strategically. Because, like Karoline, you can turn a cross into a symbol of justice, inspiring a nation. Hit the subscribe button to join Karoline in continuing the fight for justice and religious freedom. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video to explore new victories.